started on 5th April 2020, and this is the 52nd lecture, and we have not missed a Sunday. Whatever Sundays we have missed, they were festivals, so we did not conduct. But we are very proud to say that now this is the 52nd lecture. We are will be delivered by Dr. Shashithai Gangal. Shashithai Gangal is a well-known personality in education industry. She has worked with several years with Pune University. I already attached her biodata for more details, so I did not repeat that. But her specialization was in sensors, and I had opportunity to attend one of her national level sensor workshop at Pune University when I was working with Philips. So our interactions are from those days, and I'm sure she has a very good exposure of research work going on all India. We also have some friends from various universities, especially we have Dr. Bhatnagar from Bhavnagar University. Probably he also can throw some light the research activity. He just said they're all working on magnetic fluids. So uh, we have August gathering of industry as well as education field, and I'm sure this is going to be a truly interactive session. India needs a lot of sensors, but unfortunately most of the sensors are imported like defense goods. Our major dependence is on imports, and indigenization has not happened. I'm sure Dr. Shashi Gangal will throw some light on this work that is happening at university level and how they are trying to convert their research into industrial product or marketable product, and the difficulties that they are all facing. Definitely, we all have a duty to make sure that the difficulties are overcome and indigenous sensors are produced and manufactured in the country, because this country now can't afford to import because we have very limited resources as far as foreign exchange is concerned. So without spending much time, I will request Dr. Shashi Gangal to start her presentation on sensor research in Indian universities, status and problems faced. So over to Dr. Shashi Gangal.
Good morning to everybody. Uh, I'll be talking. I'm working in the university for last, right from the age of 2021 till date. Till date, why I say because I'm associated still with the university. So I'll be giving some of my experiences and my views in this sensor because I've worked for quite long years on these sensors. I hope I'll be able to give you something and put before the industrial audience our problems from the university, and I'm sure to get the help from university from the industries because I'm quite associated with some of the industries and aware of the industrial environment. So I hope this lecture will bring us more together. I'll start my lecture. To start with, I'll just to tune the audience to the subject. I'll give you some initial things or very basic things, which may be boring to you, but just bear with me. A sensor is a device that measures a physical quantity and converts it into a signal, which can be read by an observer or by an instrument. The physical quantity can be in the form of 6 domains, say mechanical, thermal, radiation, electrical, magnetic, and chemical. And the instruments used for reading the quantity often needs to be electrical. An actuator which converts the electrical signal into physical phenomena, and both sensor and actuators, they are called as transducers, changing one signal, one form of the energy to the other form of energy. These sensors possess a static as well as dynamic characteristics as the performance of the sensor is. There is a long list of static characteristics like transfer function, sensitivity, accuracy, uncertainty, precision, difference between, there is a difference, of course, in precision accuracy. impedance and impedance matching, resolution, reliability, repeatability, reproducibility, hysteresis, linearity, saturation, threshold, deadband, excitation, calibration, zero, zero drift, range of the sensor, etc. There are some dynamic characteristics: the warm-up time of the sensor, frequency response of the sensor, the response time, both response up and response down, recovery time, speed of the response, lag, span and dynamic range. Input and output, of course, are there are certain other parameters like environmental and aging effects and the noise in the sensors. These characteristics, sensors may or may not possess all these characteristics. Some characteristics depend. Excuse me. Some characteristics depending upon its performance. There are various types of sensors. They are categorized as passive sensors. They are the transducers which require external energy for their operation. For example, thermistors, strain gauges, photoresistors, they require external energy. Active or self-generating sensors, these transducers do not require any additional or external source of power. Say a photodiode, piezoelectric material, coiled microphone, pH meter, HG thermometer, solar cells, thermocouples, they don't require any additional power source for it. But there are some sensors like radar, which is sometimes known as active and sometimes known as passive. Because radar has an antenna. Antenna can be active or passive. Active when they call antenna, when it is used for radar, that is detecting and ranging the object. And when it senses the earth radiation or sun radiation, then it is called as passive because it is looking at one source only, probably. And that is the definition difference. There are some modulating sensors. These transducers require an auxiliary or external energy source for their operation. For example, pressure sensors, magnetic field sensors. There are tandem transducers, wherein it's an important class of input signal. The input signal is first converted to a second domain, and then the output is converted to a further in a third domain, maybe a electrical domain finally, or that may contain more number of steps. Often the in between step is a thermal domain. For example, if you are measuring a pressure using a Pirani vacuum gauge, you are measuring vacuum, that's lower pressure. Then it is first converted into a temperature and then into an electrical, electrical output is then calibrated in terms of the pressure. So they are called as tandem transducers. These transducers are classified in various ways. One is the input. Then it is classified in terms of energy domain: mechanical, thermal, radiation, electromechanical, chemical, magnetic, etc. Then it is can be classified in terms of specifications: fast responding, reliable, low cost, low weight, contact type, non-contact type, etc. They can be classified in terms of manufacturing technology. For example, semiconductor technology, MEMS, polymer technology, nanotechnology, etc. They can be classified on the basis of sensing material. Materials can be inorganic, conducting, organic, biological, liquid, etc. They are classified in terms of conversion phenomena, which is transduced. Physical into thermoelectric, photoelectric, chemical into electrochemical, spectroscopy, etc. Then on the field of applications, they are classified: agriculture, civil, military, automotive, domestic, etc. Then stimulus wise, it can be classified acoustic sensor, biological sensor, chemical sensor, electric sensor, or on the basis of type of output, whether it's an analog signal or a digital signal. These sensors are made using various fabrication technologies. It's a pellet technology. For example, piezoelectric and thermistors are made in this technology. Thin film, thick film, polymer, biochemical, silicon technology, MEMS. MEMS also lies under silicon technology, but it's a micro electromechanical system, though it is defined separately. So nanotechnology, glass blowing, they are older technologies. Glass blowing technology, mechanical, magnetoresistance, microwave, optical guides and technologies is a new technology. We have the various types of sensors. I'll not go into details of it. As far as the global market is concerned, we have various. Here you can see that in North America, in Europe, Asia Pacific, and America, etc. There are till 2027 very large increase in the required sensors is going to be there, and in every field. I mean, this I'm giving only for the gas sensor market. Gas sensor market is also going to increase a lot. Blue one is for automotive. This one is for industrial, but everywhere you can see there is a rise in it, and we will require many sensors. And because of the smartness of the equipment or IoT coming in, there will be still more increase in the number of sensors required. That is, I mean, a global sensor market is shown over here. And we may not be able to read the details of it, but you can understand all the sensors. I mean, whatever you take will be required in your future life or future applications, and we need to work on those sensors, and mainly we should work for indigenization of all these sensors. There are sensor research in Indian universities. I mean, we were conducting national seminars on physics and technology of sensors right from the year 1994 to 2016. We had done it. We had done it, and these were conducted either at Pune University or alternate years on some other places like Sardar Patel University of Vallabh Vidyanagar, then Thapar Institute, Patiala, IGCAR, Kalpakam, VIT Pune, BRC Mumbai, Jivaji University, Gwalior, Lucknow University at Lucknow, Tuljaram Chaturchand College, Baramati, Maharashtra, SRTM University, Nanded. So we have reached various places and various regions of India, and people were coming from large number of universities and research institutes in this for these seminars. We conducted 19 actually, because of I don't have at home all the proceedings of these seminars, so I could not I mean, consolidate the information on all other seminars. But whatever was available with me, I've tried to collect the information on which type of sensors these universities or research institutes are working. We conducted 2 international seminars also. Here you can see that the number of papers are larger, and ISPTS 1 and ISPTS 2. Now, so we were to conduct in last year, 2019, at Nagpur, but unfortunately, because of this corona, disease, we were not able to do that. So we'll maybe in near future we'll conduct ISPTS 3 at Nagpur. People are working at various places on different domains, as I explained in the first slide: optical domain, chemical domain, thermal domain, mechanical domain, and all. These are number of papers which are presented during different NSPTS numbers. I mean, NSPTS 19 had 13 papers in 4 papers in optical domain. Sorry, the 19 had 13 papers in chemical domain, 1 paper in mechanical domain. This attendance was little less, I mean, because of some other problems there, the delay. But as you can see, large number of people in universities are working with chemical domain, and that is mainly gas sensors, biosensors, humidity sensors, and all. They are using various types of materials for developing these things. Comparatively, the other interesting field is mechanical sensors, and now it is MEMS, and instrumentation and measurements. There's a lot of optical also has some interest, but chemical sensors are too, because this is comparatively easy to handle the research, and you get something or the other when you work on these sensors, and therefore people are going for this, and it's comparatively less costly. And if you have some other techniques like optical domain or the mechanical domain, MEMS and all, they require expensive equipment, and therefore more people. But unfortunately, we have not got any sensor commercially viable out of all these people who are working all over India. Some of them, we university people land up publishing the paper in journals, and then forgetting. We are happy that we have contributed some or the other things. Our papers are cited by some other people that we are doing some good thing, etc. But commercially viability is not possible. Actually, we started this NSPTS series of seminars to attract industries, but unfortunately, it was not possible for some of the other reasons. I will come to those reasons why we could not attract industries. So for material simulations, etc., there are large number of people who are working. For simulation is comparatively easy to do. You can show something, and it is good. But all these things have brought the researchers together. We know each other. We know who is working in which field, and we can get help from the people working. If we are not, we lack in some things, we can always interact with these people and get some inputs. As far as Pune University is concerned, we have certain areas. The physics department, Department of Electronic Science, Department of Chemistry, Department of Bioinformatics, and these people are working on the sensors. And now there is a technology department also. But our expertise goes in synthesis and characterization of sensing materials like bio, inorganic, and synthetic materials. We have variety of techniques to do this sensing material synthesis. I'll come to that in few minutes. Development of sensors. People are working on gas sensors, humidity sensors, acceleration sensors, biosensors. MEMS-based sensors are also being done in the university. Fiber optic sensors, IoT is a newly introduced field wherein Department of Electronic Science is working. Design and development of sensor instrumentation is also going on in Department of Instrumentation Science and Electronic Science, physics also. And artificial neural networks and embedded systems is another area of excellence or area of work in the university. We have developed over these years lot of sensors. I'm giving you a few examples. This is an optically activated force sensor calibrated as a weighing balance, and it's a micro bending of the optical fiber is used. This the pan is sitting on an optical sensor, optical fiber, wherein because of the weight of this pan, the optical fiber is bent. And bending will reduce the number of, reduce the energy which is, or the light intensity which is coming on the other side, receiver side. And that intensity is calibrated in terms of weight. This way, you can, range of the sensor is 1 gram to 3 kilograms. Accuracy is of the order of 1% over the range with plus minus 5% linearity. Response and recovery times are 200 milliseconds, and there is no hysteresis observed. This is the one which is developed, because we could not go for the industrialization of this. Then liquid density measurement using a load cell. This was developed. The density of the liquids is very easily determined by finding the weight loss. So weight loss is found by a load cell, and sensitivity of this sensor is equal to 1.1 gram per milliliter. Then students have worked on, researchers have worked on sucrose biosensor based on a planar optical waveguide using co-immobilized plant, invertase and geode. These are same images, scanning electron microscope images of the material developed, biosensor developed. This sensor was having a linear range from 1 into 10 raised to minus 10 to 1 into 10 raised to minus 6 moles. Lower detection was possible, 2.5 into 10 raised to minus 11 moles for sucrose. Operational stability was 10 cycles. Storage stability was 80 days. And possible application for this estimation of sucrose in food samples is for soft drinks, fruits, juices, etc., which has a very high sensitivity. So the small impurities can also be detected using this sensor. Then there was a quantum dot based sensors for E. coli. This is a sensor chip which is developed. It's a 3D microchannels which are developed using metal wires for micro dimensions. And this immunochip was fabricated for detection of E. coli. And it was possible to detect E. coli ranging from 10 raised to 2 cells to 10 raised to 8 cells per milliliter. This is optical fiber based force sensor. The principle used again is a micro bending of plastic optical fiber sensor fiber. The response time is 5 to 7 seconds, and range of measurement is 1 gram to 300 grams. A lot 2 kg. Then we developed a nano particle dispersed in polyaniline, and it is used for optical humidity sensing. This was very good switching. I'm sorry. Very good switching response to humidity above 90% RH. And sensitivity ranges from 0.138 millivolts per percent of RH to 12 millivolt per percentage of RH for lower to higher concentrations. Then we have developed a BRICS system. Fiber optic load cell is again shown over here. Liquid sensor cell with prism coupling. This is a testing arrangement of food samples. This is a multiple capacitor sensor for sensing the liquid level. And this is a pH sensor. We also developed a fabrication system or sensor treatment system. This is known as rapid thermal processing. Because sometimes for silicon technology, it is, when you are using few wafers, and if you are heating it in a conventional resistive furnace, it requires maybe some half an hour or so to get the stable temperature and all that thing. But sometimes we are not able to spend that much time, and the processing time can be reduced by rapid thermal processing technique, wherein an optical energy or optical absorption of the silicon is used as a for heating the sensor or heating the silicon, and therefore processing time goes in few minutes rather than few tens of minutes. Then this is a BOD sensor. This is again a thickness measurement sensor for using optical fiber. We also developed electronic sniffer dog. We call it as a sniffer dog. This is a Figaro sensor with sensor array. More number of gases can be detected by a single sensor. And we have, if a particular, this sensor and then a robot was designed to move the sensors. This was commercially available. This we did not develop in-house. This was put on a robot, and robot was moving in different directions. It was packaged like this. And algorithm was developed to rotate this, to move this robot in different directions, wherein you get a maximum response of the sensor. That is maximum amount of the that particular gas which is present over there. So it can detect various gas for how much, and this has to be trained to do that. So training also was given. Neural network training was also given for that. So we call it as a electronic sniffer dog. This was developed in electronic science department by Dr. Gharpure. Then we had developed human pulse detection system, polymer. I'll be talking more on this because I want to tell the people what are the different difficulties when we get while coming from a zero level to a usable sensor level. I do not say a commercially viable sensor because it is not so. So this system, Hall sensor we developed for RPM. This is a silicon wafer on which a Hall sensor has 4 contacts.
Shivani?
And a, hello?
Hey, Mala.
And this was a, we developed, we fabricated large number of sensors on a single wafer, and we separated them for use in a RPM meter. This is a mount we used for the tip is containing the sensor, which is developed, and the electronic pulse counter is in this part of the structure. And this was developed for a vehicle research development DRDO lab in Nagar. Then people have developed inorganic phosphate setup, and this is E. coli sensing setup for using our sensors for characterizing. We also developed this again was a DRDO project, MEMS-based accelerometer. It's a single axis accelerometer which was designed in a university electronic science department at the design center. I'd like to tell you one more thing, that we had a Center for Sensor Studies in University of Pune, established under the ISRO DRDO joint program. So the UOP and the UOP project, ULP project, University Leadership Project, which was given by the UGC. And DRDO, DRDO had given us a complete Coventerware software for designing MEMS devices. And this sensor center was having, I mean, all the developments which I have told till now were also done. I mean, some of them are done in Center for Sensor Studies, and which is presently not operative because of the funding problems. Because we cannot retain, we cannot give scholarships to the students. When the money was available through UGC or something, the university is not ready to give us the funding for maintaining the or retaining the students, and therefore that activity has come to an end. And finally, I will like to appeal the present group for this particular exercise. Okay, then we developed a single axis accelerometer, a resistive type. This is a cantilever, a proof mass, which you can see, and there are for measuring the, I mean, improving the accuracy of measurement, we have put this sensor in Wheatstone bridge and improved the sensitivity of the sensor. Because if you measure the single sensor, the change in the resistance is not. This resistance of the sensor is around 4K. If the change is in of the order of few tens of ohms, then it's not possible to measure accurately. Therefore, we introduced into Wheatstone bridge, and these are the other three sensors on the silicon body. And this particular is a proof mass. The dimensions are 400 microns and 1000 microns in the length. The cantilever has a dimensions of 50 micron width, 100 micron length, and 12 micron thickness. This was designed at university. Since we do not have a fabrication facility of MEMS, we had to go to Bharat Electronics Limited, Bangalore, to fabricate this particular sensor. And ARD was the funding agency for supporting this particular research. But this remained here only because I mean, the availability of the Bharat Electronics Limited is a industry. They cannot give every now and then our time for our work, and then our work gets held, and we cannot do much. So it remains as a concept proof and all that thing, and we cannot go ahead. And this is the problem which always, I mean, most of the universities are facing. They are ready to do work, good work. Next, I mean, even if the Bell industry, I mean, Bell gives us the time, etc., etc., till then we have to retain the manpower. And manpower retainment is not possible because research student who has worked on this will naturally go for a job and will not be available for I mean, he will write his report and keep it. But for sharing his experiences and all, he will not be available now, every now and then. And therefore, the research remains in a box. We also developed polymer cantilevers, silicon diaphragm, IR detectors. I mean, this is again by aging. A very thin silicon can detect, I mean, can transmit IR. And therefore, it can be used for a IR detection. I mean, it changes. So that's what we could do. Then piezoelectric cantilever we made, and SiO2 beam or SiO2 cantilever we have worked on. This piezoelectric and SiO2 was developed by thin film processes like activated reactive evaporation or E-beam evaporation or sputtering and all. We also have, I mean, university has worked on large number of gas sensors. Uh, there are various forms of the gas sensors: single crystal sensors, sintered pellets, thick films, thin films, heterojunctions. And in thin films, I mean, university has large number of facilities and thin film fabrication. So naturally, we university people will go for a thin film fabrication of sensors. Thermal oxidation, chemical deposition, electron beam evaporation, activated reactive evaporation, spray pyrolysis, uh, metal organic chemical vapor deposition, sputtering, RF and magnetron sputtering. These are various techniques which are used for thin film fabrication, and all these are available in the university. Then there are for polymer films, there are various materials. These are for thin films for say inorganic materials. And for organic materials, we have electrochemical, chemical method, plasma polymerization, spin coating, spray pyrolysis, and all. I mean, all these techniques are also available. And therefore, research students can go for change the technique, change the doping concentration, change the material, and work on various uh, sensors for various gases or humidity. The sensors typically we develop were resistive type, capacitive type, or optical fiber with the help of optical fibers. There are few which I'm describing over here because all I cannot do. This is just a sample. ZNO NH3 gas sensor. The ZNO, the sensor for NH3 gas was developed for 400 ppm. Response time was 1 to 4 minutes. Recovery time was 7 to 15 minutes. And these characteristics could be improved by annealing or irradiation of the sensors by silicon irradiation. And we could get the change in the sensing characteristics. It especially improved the sensitivity of the sensor. So we could go to a smaller level of the ppm. Then these ZNO sensors, many of the research workers have used for and added some impurities or composites of these. We call it doping. Doping is adding an impurity. Let's say like Fe2O3 or MnO3, etc. I mean, different impurities, metallic impurities can be doped into ZNO to change the selectivity of the sensor. It can sense a different gas. I have a more sensitivity for different gas. Then we worked on polypyrrole sensor for H2S gas. 50 ppm, the sensitivity was 10 to 15%. Sensitivity can be given, defined in different ways, maybe in percent sensitivity or in terms of change in resistance. Response time was 2 to 3 minutes and recovery time was 3 to 4 hours. I mean, all these sensors, ZNO sensor you take or polymer sensors you take, they are quite slow. They are quite slow. When you go for improving the characteristics, the instability, the sensor, the material becomes unstable. And so you cannot use it for very long time. This is the problem which the researchers are facing. Then we have worked on optical humidity sensor, which is based on in situ and ex situ synthesis of AG nanoparticles, silver nanoparticles, and PVP, polyvinyl material and we have made a composite. We coated a 5 micrometer thick film on a self-supported PVP substrate again. And the sensor has a linear response till 6 to 94%, and it offers a sensitivity of 0.68 per percent RH. And when measured XC2, it gives a sensitivity of 0.31 per percent. Okay. The response and recovery time were 9 seconds and 12 seconds respectively. I mean, this was quite a good, I mean, and this shows good sensitivity compared to the commercially available sensors also. But again, I mean, one thing is applying for the patent that we cannot do because of the funding problem. We cannot go further for developing, I mean, commercially viable because the student has earned his PhD degree and he is disappearing. There are no second in line, both from teachers' point of view, I mean, the faculty and the research students also. Because nowadays more research students are interested in working with white hand. I mean, they don't want to make their hands dirty for developing the materials and all those things. They take the ready-made materials and do it. So we cannot, or they develop the instruments, or they develop, I mean, IoT, and I mean Internet of Things, etc. They go for that particular thing because it's comparatively easy and the computers are available and I mean the whole computer and whole techniques are available for that. We do require for all these materials the structural characterization and morphological characterization, XRD, FTIR, UV visible, Raman spectroscopy, and morphological or optical scanning electron and transmission electron microscopy. These techniques are available somewhere or the other in the university. However, it happens that these I mean, these techniques are in possession with some research faculty, or I mean, there are no operators available for operating that thing because there is no manpower recruitment in the university, and therefore, what happens that if we want to go for say FTIR spectroscopy, I have to wait for a long time, or I have to train my student to go to take the help of the research faculty. I mean, if he allows, it's okay. Or if he says that I will do it for you, it has to be his time. And then what happens is that material, whatever we are developing, that may deteriorate, and we do not get the exact results. And therefore, we keep interpreting the results with all these limitations given. I mean, and therefore it is now university has a dedicated, I mean, test and measuring instrument center. But there also the instruments are in possession with some researcher, and there are no enough manpower, technical manpower available for testing it. So again, the researchers are in the same position, I mean, same state. And therefore, the various problems which we face while doing the research is availability of the basic materials. As I was telling, we have to develop our own materials, or if we get some basic, the materials also, the pure materials are not available. In India, we have to go for importing the things. Because if the impurities are there, then we cannot get the repeatability of the sensors which we are developing. Therefore, availability of the adequate fabrication equipment, timely availability of the test facilities, then funds available, availability and retention of dedicated research students, industrial support for taking research to a commercial viable output, and time factor involved is the problem which are faced. And packaging, we just do it. I mean, our sensors are open, so when you go for after some days, the sensor might have lost its sensitivity, etc., because of the environmental condition, the dust particles sitting on it and all that. I'll be talking on these problems first when I'm explaining you the sensor which is developed in my laboratory. This PVDF-based piezoelectric sensor for human pulse detection, which we developed. We were having commercially available sensors for pulse detection. The diameter was 22 millimeter. Frequency response was 0 to 5 kilohertz. It was sensitive to the pulse. The material used was PZT, but the physical nature of the sensor was hard. When you want to use these sensors and putting it on the human hand, then the diameter is too large, and the Nadi Vaidyas who detect the human pulse for their diagnosis, the sensors they use are their fingers and fingertips, and 8 to 10 millimeter, and therefore these sensors could not be used. Though, and when you are pressing it for getting the pulse output, pressing it hard on the wrist, then the patient gets troubled. So that was a problem with this sensor. Then we were using, we were having acoustic sensors, and the PZT pellet of it we removed. Its sensor was also 10 millimeter. Frequency response was beyond 10 kilohertz, whereas frequency response required is from 0 hertz, because the human pulse detection, human pulse is 1 to 1.2 kilohertz, 1 to 1 hertz only. So we require a frequency response right from 0. The sensitivity was lower. It was again a PZT and hard. So we could not use this, and so we thought of developing our own sensor. This was the needed film characteristics. It should have a high dielectric coefficient, a beta phase of the material, which gives you a high dielectric coefficient. The film should be non-porous. The film should be flexible so that it can be put on anybody, any patient's hand, right from a small kid to a hefty person. It should have a high tensile strength. We selected polyvinyl difluoride for this particular material because it has a piezoelectric coefficient about 30 picocoulomb per Newton. It is flexible. It is high operation bandwidth, right from 0 to 10⁶. It has low acoustic impedance, which we were requiring. It is biocompatible. If you put on the human hand, biocompatibility is also to be seen. Otherwise, person will get irritated. And so it's a chemically inert material, and it is ease of fabrication in the form of films and other shapes. Therefore, we selected this. But this PVDF film is available commercially with different dielectric piezoelectric coefficients. But we were not knowing what exact piezoelectric coefficient we require for our purpose. And the industries which were selling, it was imported material, they were not ready to give us a single sheet because we do not have sufficient funds to bring more number of sheets. And if we require different D33, we have to again go for large number of sheets, and they will go west. The thing is that even if we convince the supplier to give us one sheet also, the importing this material will be all the duties, etc., they will be too high, and they're higher than the material cost, and therefore university will not allow us purchasing so. So we thought of developing our own material. We took a PVDF powder of 1 gram. It was dissolved in a solvent, N-methyl pyrrolidone, NMP, and it was heated at a 60 degrees centigrade with continuous stirring of 45 minutes. We stretched the film PVDF film by spin coating using a completely dissolved solution at a rate of 1000 to 2200 RPM for 40 seconds. I mean, these parameters are optimized parameters. Spinning speed and time were optimized to obtain the desired thickness of the film. The spin-coated films were annealed at an optimum 60 degrees centigrade for 20 minutes to cure the film and retaining the beta phase. Films were peeled off from the substrate for further processing. I mean, this we require a phenol-free material, I mean, non-porous material, and therefore we had to heat it, I mean, anneal it. We peeled off the material from the substrate and for further processing. Then we required contacts for it. Contacts are, that is metallization. We used aluminum coating. Gold will be better but gold is a problem because again, the availability of the gold and it requires a license to do anything with gold because if you want to etch it, then the aqua regia, which is used for etching the gold, is very toxic, and you require a clean room. All the rules are to be observed, etc., etc. So we went an alternative was aluminum electrode, which was deposited on both sides, 200 nanometer thick. Now, these films, we wanted to increase the beta value still further.
10 minutes left.
The cooling of the film, and at 110 degrees centigrade for 3 hours. The packaging of the film was done in PDMS in an elastomer, which is having good chemical and thermal stability, and it's used as a packaging material for PVDF sensor. These parameters we optimized: solvent concentration, baking temperature, spinning speed, I'm sorry for the spelling, spinning time, and the Pauling voltage. Pauling voltage required is 125 megavolt per meter. So we did not have the, of course, this 1 meter we did not have. We had a sensor with few microns. So we had to go for the lower voltages, and we had to purchase a power supply for that purpose because current required is very small. It's a dielectric film, so current required is small, but the voltage is higher. Solvent concentration was 68%. These are optimized parameters, and this gave us a transparent non-porous films of around 13 micron. Then we packaged it. This is an aluminum coating on both sides of the film. Then we used a packaging. This is a cross section of the package. The single PVDF film of around 20 millimeter by 18 millimeter was pulled and cut into 3 parts of 4 mm by 18 mm. That is required because these are the sensing area on the wrist is 8 by 4 millimeter square. Pressure range required is 1 kPa to 10 kPa. Resolution, these are the other sensor characteristics or features. Dimensions are especially total length is 16 millimeter. Length with the length in contact with the wrist, width in contact with the wrist, and therefore film width used and film height used. The response time and frequency response is
Madam,
what parameters.
So that there is time available for question answer.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll finish it faster. Then we packaged it. This was the sensor which was fabricated, finally a packaged and usable sensor. We made such 3 sensors because at 3 pulse points, Vata, Pitta and Kapha, it was required. We tested it for load sensor for its characteristics. Then we developed a PVDF sensor signal conditioning circuit because especially we required a 50 Hertz rejection filter. That is required because our body is having 50 hertz input from the electrical wires which are going above us, or electrical field, and that is to be rejected because we are keeping in contact with our sensor. Then we acquire the data. We developed a LabVIEW programs for acquisition of the data. These are the data which we acquired. We characterize the sensors for pressure response, for linear regression, and frequency response. And all the three sensors which we used for the human pulse detection, they were selected on the basis of all these responses equal. Otherwise, we cannot talk anything about the diagnosis of the human pulse. Then pulse detection using developed sensor. This was, and here I required a help from the industry. And this is a complete setup for using this is the sensors which we keep on the human body. Now this is a signal conditioning for sensors and DAC card. And this is the output which we have on our laptop. This is another version of sensors which we, this was very clumsy, and this was a little better. This is another version which also we use for detection of the signals. This is the Vata. We kept the pressure on each finger or each sensor constant, input pressure, that is with the pressure with which we are keeping it on the finger. And these three are the outputs. This is Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. You can see that with all the sensors with equal pressure given and equal characteristics, these sensors are giving different outputs. That is, we can check the people whether the person is Vata dominant, Pitta dominant, or Kapha dominant. So that we could do very well. This is the frequency FFT of the sensor to analyze it further. We collected the data from 30 subjects in the age between 20 to 25 because this sample was available in our department. We gave a 4 kPa pressure applied to individual, and data acquisition system data was stored. And we found out that Vata was 18, Pitta dominant was 3, Kapha dominant was 4. Vata, Pitta, Kapha is, all the three were present of equal amplitude. And actually, if all the sensors are giving same output, the person has a good health because it is not a damaged pulse, but a good pulse. And Vata, Pitta dominant, but the third one is smaller. So we could, and this we confirmed with an Adi Vaidya, or an Ayurvedic physician, and ours and his data matched till 95%. Well, so we have to accept for, we can go further and take it to be 100%. These are some of the samples. This is Vata dominant, this amplitude is more. It's Pitta dominant, the center is more. Kapha dominant and Vata, Kapha, Pitta, the same amplitude on all three. So this is it. There are software features and we are analyzing it further for whether there is a difference in, this is systolic and diastolic peaks which are present on the sensor pulse. What is the distance between them? What is the area under them? And whether it is age dependent or whether it is disease dependent, etc. Now, this is a starting point and we can now go further. But now you can see that there are various lacunae or various problems which are faced at different, instrumentation problems, the packaging problems, the use problems, etc., etc. And therefore, all these problems which are mentioned, we can have a possible solution if the industry is involved right from the formulating the project till to the completion. We can do much better on the sensors because we are happy with publishing the papers, but industries are not. So we can work together right from the start till packaging and aesthetic design of the sensors will be required from the industry. Input will be required from industry. Partial funding, I mean, in a sense, I told you that I got held up because I cannot make bring the single piece of a polymer sheet. I mean, some industries can help me in getting with their other consignments this sheet so that I can do the other things more clearly, and then I can keep on working on my development of material separately. Technical manpower, I mean, this is helping the researchers and in the initial stages, and in turn getting it trained. When we come to a product, the industry will have a people who are trained in that particular sensor fabrication. And for all these things, I feel that we should do joint efforts to develop a sensor hub. I mean, like instead of innovation center, we can call it as a sensor hub, wherein all such facilities, information can be collected, or the time we can purchase the time for different laboratories and get the information where what we can do in a minimum time. Thank you. Yes, I'm ready for questions.
Thank you, madam, for the overview of the sensors where you have worked in university. Yeah, so let's see a few questions because we already extended. So please identify yourself and ask the question.
Can I start? May I? Will ask your permission.
Today, more than 7 people. Yeah, please. Yeah, name.
My name is Bedar
Your name.
Company name SBM.
Please start and tell your name.
But the name is Bedar Kar. And Dr. Mrs. Gangal, thank you for a very good insight into the amount of working that has been done. A very small question for a start is that when these projects were taken up, or rather the solutions that you have looked at, has there been a comparison with the state of art that is actually available in the market?
What is available?
No. Is there a comparison made between what was done and what is the state of art when the project was started?
Yes, the Pulse Code project, no?
No,
that is what
any one of the projects. No, the question, madam, is a little bit, see, the point that I'm trying to make is that if the technology is to be deployed, then what is comparably available? Like for instance, you talked about a humidity sensor. I have several distinct, but I think we'll take it offline. But for an example, the humidity sensor, it's a very common sensor. It's something that has to be is utilized quite a bit, and it is definitely a marketable product. But when you did that, did you look at the state of art for humidity?
Yeah, we did look into, and on the basis of that, I mean, when we look at that, we try to get better characteristics by doing the research. I mean, manipulating the materials, manipulating the testing facilities, etc., etc.
Yeah. Okay. I'll leave this with one question because otherwise.